Management Organization. This is a book on network management technology. We focus on the effectiveness of the technology, not on the management organization itself. Of course, effectiveness of the management organization that uses management technology is an equally important factor in the running of the network. Here, lessons of general organizational effectiveness apply. Providing services and operating networks constitutes one particular scenario to which methodologies developed in its space can be applied. One example of such a methodology is the balanced scorecard. This methodology suggests viewing the organization from four distinct perspectives: learning and growth, business process, customer, financial and developing metrics, collecting data, and analyzing the organization with respect to each of the perspectives. A second example is the performance prism, a methodology that focuses more on optimizing organizational effectiveness than assessing it. The performance prism distinguishes among five perspectives: stakeholder satisfaction, identifying the stakeholders and what they want; strategies, satisfying the stakeholders; processes, executing the strategies; capabilities, supporting the processes; and stakeholder contribution, helping develop and maintain the capabilities. It is interesting to observe that this is the blind man and the elephant. All over again, one aspect that many of those methodologies have in common is that they all identify a set of different dimensions that are used to characterize the problem of space. Of course, there is no single way to assess organizational effectiveness, but there are multiple ways to skin the cat. Accordingly, different methodologies come up with different ways to divide and conquer the problem. Assessing network management effectiveness. Now that we have reviewed the factors and management features that contribute to management business impact, how can we actually assess how well management is working? What is needed is a set of metrics by which the effectiveness of the management can be measured. An understanding of such metrics, along with an understanding of the different ways in which management technology contributes to those metrics, can provide invaluable guidance for determining priorities in the development and deployment of management technology. Ultimately, what counts is the bottom line. Hence, metrics used for network management should include the same type of metrics that would use for any other type of business. We therefore start by taking a look at some metrics that capture business impact. As we shall see, those metrics alone cannot capture the entire picture. They need to be augmented by other metrics that capture how effective various factors that are contribute to the bottom line. That aspect is discussed later in the chapter. In effect, there is a management value chain. This chain starts with an individual management features, such as threshold crossing alerts, programmability, and sort and search functions. As discussed previously, those features contribute to various factors in management effectiveness, such as user productivity, operational robustness, and scalability of operations. Management metrics to track business impact. As mentioned earlier, the business impact of a network management consists of its contribution to cost savings, revenues, and improved network services themselves, especially regarding reliability and availability. We start with metrics that can be applied to assessing the cost side of the equation. The metrics that are presented here do not constitute a complete list. Instead, they are intended to provide a sense of the areas on which management has an impact and how this impact can possibly be captured. For one, there is a total cost of the operations. This includes the cost of the operations staff and the amortization of cost of the operation support infrastructures. The more effective the management, the lower the total cost. Of course, Total numbers can be hard to compare because the total cost does not take into account the complexity and scale of the network being managed. Normalized metrics that put the cost into perspective regarding what is actually being achieved are often more meaningful. For example, total cost of operations can be normalized over the following: number of devices, operational cost per device. Because devices can be vastly different in nature and scale, this metric is not always meaningful unless dealing with very homogeneous environments. Number of ports, operational cost per supported access port. This provides a more level playing field and allows operational costs to be compared across different types of equipment. For example, this measure should reflect better economies of scale if large-scale pieces of equipment are used. Such equipment will likely involve a higher operational cost per device. However, taking into account the additional capacity paints a more appropriate and favorable picture. Number of service instances. For example, operational cost per voice extension. Number of end users. For example, the operational cost per employee in an enterprise. Other metrics track the contribution of individual cost factors. An obvious set of metrics concerns operator productivity, measuring the number of devices, ports, service instances, or end users that single network operator can support. A variation of this is the amount of service revenue supported per operator. Another example concerns the number of truck rolls. For example, truck rolls per service activation or truck rolls per year of maintaining an already activated service. Truck rolls refer to the need to send personnel to a customer, in many cases driving in a truck, to activate and maintain a communication service. Not only are truck rolls very expensive, but they also inconvenience customer and negatively impact customer satisfaction. A third example concerns the number of customer calls to a help desk that are required to resolve a case. Clearly, the number of calls should be as low as possible because each call costs money and inconveniences customers. Sometimes, the ratio between different cost factors can provide useful information as well. A telling metric in the regard concerns the ratio of the operation support infrastructure amortization cost to personnel cost. A high ratio could be an indication that there is a high build out of operation support infrastructure, leading to potentially diminished returns on the further investment in that area. A low ratio, on the other hand, could be an indication that investment is too low and that operators could be better leveraged by filling up infrastructure, particularly if the normalized cost of the operation is relatively high. There are also metrics concerning a network management impact on our revenue. The problem between many of those metrics is that although management is a contributing factor, how much revenue can really be attributed to management is not always clear. In many cases, there are also many other factors at work. Nevertheless, there are metrics that are still useful, such as the following. Mean time to fill customer orders. Time from service order to service activation. The shorter the time, the better because the revenue potential of a service is more fully exploited. Average size of the customer order backlog. Again, this number can be translated directly to customer dollars. The smaller the average backlog size, the better. Customer defections from slow order fulfillment. Services cancelled and, hence, revenue loss from the customer cancelling services before they were activated. Total penalties for service level agreement violations, reflecting to total lost revenue. Ratio between penalties and theoretical service revenue, reflecting the portion of revenue that was lost from violated SLAs. Finally, reliability and availability of the network and the services need to be assessed. The classical metrics here are the following.